Right. So it's Feedback Friday. Not many images this time around. Sad face. But I guess might have been a short running Feedback Friday. If no one wants feedback, then that's it. Then we'd come up with something else on Fridays. That sounds so bitter, but I'm not bitter. Rest assured, I'm not bitter. Hey, Captain Boss, how's it going? 1 second, there's some ASMR happening here. Hey, Zealand. How are you? Man, they switch on the heating because the temperature is so low now. It's like you gotta heat the homes, and every year when they switch the heating on, everything just dries up on me. I think I need to have like a coconut oil bath or something to kind of juice up the skin, because man, it's like sandpaper on my skin. You're tired and upset. Oh no, boss, that's not good. Don't be upset. Tired, that's fine, but don't be upset, man. Oh, Zealin. So what you're doing is calzone filler, right? Does that work? I don't remember what the command was. Filler? No, it doesn't. I don't remember it. I don't remember the command. You're upset by nature. Oh. Hey, Ghost Shiv, Atsuki, how's it going? Good morning, visual artists. Good morning, visual artists. Calzone. Oh, I wrote it with a K. Hey, Miazis, how's it going? What's up, calzone filler? It's so funny. For those who don't understand that inside joke, in Swedish, there is this saying that the peak of lazy weekend is you're in your underwear, drinking alcohol, ordering home pizza, and you get drunk and eat pizza like just a weekend. You don't do anything else but. So it's like, in Swedish it's kalsongfylla, which means underwear drunk. So, and it sounds like calzone filler, like some sort of DJ. So that's the whole thing. Hey Amir, how's it going? Hey Clifford, what's up? Oh, you're on, is the baby okay? Boss. Or why didn't you sleep? Yeah, the famous DJ. I mean, exactly. Well, happy Friday, everyone. And let's start the timer. I'm going to be sketching. And there was 3 things that wasn't given feedback on because they missed before the stream last Friday. So this is the only 3 things to discuss. No one has painted anything with hashtag FF on Discord. So, oh, that's great, boss. That's great. All right, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something else that we shouldn't know. All right, so this one, I think this is Zootin. I think overall the image is cool. Overall the render is pretty tight. I think it's overly tight at places because there's this Kirill. Oh yeah, sorry, Kirill. Thank you, Zelin. It is by Kirill. I think it's a bit over noodled. You can see it very evident on a lot of the metal work, and I can see that he zoomed in a lot to get all those beautiful edges all perfect, and there is this forced like accuracy. Right? What I would suggest he do would be to kind of go over certain areas again with slightly bigger brush and like bounce light around and dirty some edges up. Hey, Weeping Jay, how's it going? To relax some of the kind of noodling perfection. Like you can see it on the belt buckle in particular. It's this kind of almost mechanically applied. Anything pointing left is dark. Anything pointing right has a highlight. And every single form is treated the same way, and it flattens the whole shape. And it's too noodled in. So in a way, like how I'm sketching now, you can see like you can, or let's say this is going to be a head up here, right? And we can see how the major volumes of the head I've established. And now I'm going to start establishing the other parts of the head, like the finer subforms and so on. But all of these things, they need to sit together onto the mass of the head, right? And if I start doing the same strength of the side lit by the side there, as there, as there, and as there, the depth of the head is flattened. Hey, cheers, Robert. Thanks for the host. Or raid host. So what that happens is that it flattens the illusion of depth a lot, and you can see that in a lot of parts where it's over detailed, over noodled, and then like Zeolin says also that it's the same amount or the same intensity of shapes in shadow and shapes in light. Like the chainmail in particular, but the shoulder pads, they have better this kind of mass lit by major forms. We can see them sitting correctly in space, but the part that's in light is over detailed and is too stiff, and the intensity of the highlights are equal regardless of where it sits on the form. So some subtleties needs to be there in order for it to read better. You can see it, how it really works well is on the hands. Even though the hands, the ring finger in the pink is incorrectly lit, we can still see a variation. But I would say, as this has been a portfolio piece that Kirill has been working on and pushing, it's overworked slightly. If you're going to have a lot of details, you need to be able to relax some intensity, but the pixel density of the details still needs to be there, right? They still need to be descriptive of all the aspects of what's there, but you gotta have the ability to calm contrast down, but still have that compact amount of details. But you just can't be high contrast constantly, and you're losing depth of. And you can see it on the belt, these straps hanging down versus there, but here is shadow, and we can see the curvature working really well there. But all of this is equally detailed, equally intense, and same as this part, but yet it's on the curve, right? And it flattens it out. But the attempt at detailing it up is great. It's just a matter of go back over it, sharpen and soften some edges, pay attention to overall volume, and you'll have a much stronger piece. And make sure you bounce light around. Like if you look at references, metal in particular bounces light, and high saturation things bounce the light of itself onto another object. So let's say the red, there is a little bit of red in the shoulder pad, but if it's red like this and it's hit by light, this red will bounce onto anything that reflects. Anything that's more or less not black will have touches of red on it. Miesis. Yeah, well, that's a good. That's a good. It's a good thing to practice, I'd say. But you can clearly see the noodling, and the more relaxed way of painting is in the face versus chainmail. Chainmail is over detailed on the shadow side in particular. It works on the lit side, but then there's the softness of the and it jars. It's not balanced enough. In terms of concept, it's pretty cool. He feels a bit generic. Like when we look at him, the top part of him feels like a soldier. The bottom part of him feels like an adventurer, and it's a little bit contradicting in terms of narrative, who he is and what he should do. Like at a glance, quick glance at him, what's dominant is the metal, right? That's what we read first. Then we read the crossbow. Then we read the pants, kind of, or we read shoulder, skirt, crossbow. That's how I read it. And the top part, which we land first on, is soldier. Then we go down, and then we go a hunter, like a man of the forest, but then a crossbow because he is a soldier, and around we go, and it's a little bit confusing. So I would suggest either think about what and who and why. At the moment it's a little bit confusing and not clear what the narrative, what the story you want to say in this concept is. Kirill. But you're not here, Kirill. Anyways, that's my thoughts on it. It's pretty good though overall. So a lot of dead space around him, unnecessary in the image. Here you see. You can crop him. Anyways, this was Val something, a somewhat new person on Discord and stream, but not our regular. Val asked what the comments on anatomy and render is. Yes, yeah. I think anatomy-wise, you're pretty okay, pretty good. There's no glaring mistakes, except hands and feet are a little bit wonky. You can see that you used reference, which is good. Render-wise, it's a little bit strange mashup of line art and form or value render. I would say there is a balance to be had there. There's a sweet spot if you really want to mix the two. But at the moment, it feels like there's sections of the character where you are pure form, sections of the character where you are line art with value paint underneath. I think I think like on the feet, it works really well. You have kind of these kind of exploratory lines in conjunction with like a flat brush render, quite comic style, and it works really well. But then you have more painterly parts of her, which becomes quite muddy because the process you have isn't clear enough. So I would suggest you kind of consider a little bit more the style that you want to go for, and then figure out how you want to pursue that style in terms of steps, so that your piece of art doesn't have that confusion in execution. Because at the moment there's a little bit, you don't really understand. And the other one that Val submitted is even more obvious, which is this one. This is very mixed. I mean, it's obviously not finished, and both of them I've had to censor because of Twitch. But there is genitalia in both images. But yeah, I have to. That's why there's these things on top. So that's why Val, if you wonder why there's blurred boxes on top of the crotches and nipples. Ricky, yes, it's a thing I'm doing called Feedback Friday. If you want to have your work commented on, just post it on Discord and hashtag FF. And every Friday I will search on Discord for the hashtag FF and comment on it. But this time around, there was nothing this week. These three that I'm commenting on now was from last Friday, which was posted as the stream started and not before the stream started. But anyways, on this one, I'd say the anatomy is somewhat accurate. No hands, no feet, obviously. I can see you're using references. I can see you're not extremely comfortable with anatomy. So it's good that you're practicing and looking up how it actually looks. So it's the same kind of feedback in render. The light is a bit flat. It's like lit from the camera. So every form that's facing us, like, so there's a form here, there's a form there, and whatever the center of the form is being lit. Like we have a flashlight shining it on top of the form exactly from where our eyes are looking at the image, right? So anything pointing exactly towards us gets the brightest point of light. And that works in some cases, but most cases it doesn't work. And what it does, it creates objects on objects, and it looks like you're looking at a pile of grapes from the top. You know, each highlight of the grape is pointing towards the camera, and that's what the anatomy looks like. The render looks like over there. So what you always got to do is, because you're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit when you're doing that strange lighting condition, you should pick a direction, and everything that you render should be based from that point of view. You can see that when where you're using references and where you're guessing the anatomy, especially like the legs, you have looked a little bit, but you also have to improvise, and you can see that. And a lot of it comes from this rhythm of anatomy. So how I know that is like in nature, the body, if you would have a system where everything is equal on each side, like muscles, they would have a very strong weak point, because where they meet, they wouldn't it would be a structural weak point, right? If you want to build something, you want it to be interlinked, so that when that ends, then it's covered by another, and it's covered by another, and you have the, like, that's why chains are in links, right? And they're not attached like where they meet, because where they meet and they would bend, they would break. Hey, Smoljada and Aradi, how's it going? Yeah, so with anatomy especially and the structure, like hard to show, but like the a longer curve there intersecting with a shorter curve there, and when we do a lot of, when you don't know anatomy that well and you're making it up, what you're going to do is, like, it looks like a hot dog link, you know, where the leg goes and then each part, it looks like Popeye, kind of, it looks cartoony and incorrect. And one thing that you really need to consider to learn this is to simplify the shapes into groups. And these groups, the further you simplify them, the easier they are to be understood. Like, okay, let's add an arm to my creature, right? So one simple way to think about it is, okay, I can make a cylinder, a box for the joint, another cylinder, and then a box for the joint, and then the hand, and whatever, right? And if I would just go with the muscles, like even on both ends, it would look wrong, right? So when you want to add complexity to it, you have to consider that in nature, muscles are always intersecting, because it will have way stronger structural integrity. And muscles and arms, etc., it's like, when you pull, this muscle contracts. When you push, that muscle pushes out. And if they're even on both ends, what they're doing is they're going to mess up the arm completely, because they're going to put lots of tension on the bone. But when they're interlocking, they're moving differently, and they're creating the tension on everything is shifted around rather than a central point. So what you got to always remember is that muscles are always intersecting, interlocking, not even on both ends. And in between, the areas in between joints are always smoother in terms of render, in terms of basic geometrical forms, and every joint is boxier. You can see it clearly on shoulders. You can even touch your shoulder. It feels like more like a box versus the arm, which is more of a cylinder, right? But I mean, if you have dynamite biceps like I do, it's not round. I couldn't even do that with a straight face. Anyways, that's a certain thing you need to observe, you need to practice, you need to learn. And the only way to learn that is to simplify each body part, because each body part has its specific interlocking rhythm because of the major muscle groups and then sub-muscle groups. For example, the arm and legs, they don't have one layer of muscles, they have 2 layers minimum. Smoljada. Yes, it is Feedback Friday. Every Friday, you post art on Discord, hashtag it FF, before the Friday morning stream, and I will comment on anything. Hey, the Mind Waker, how's it going? So it's layer on layer of muscles, but these muscles are in major muscle groups, like the bicep, right? But the bicep has a muscle on the outside of the bicep, and there's a muscle on the inside, and there's a muscle underneath, and on top to attach it to the shoulder. And then there's the shoulder muscle, and in the shoulder muscles there are more than one muscle, right? So it's all about understanding those groups and then simplifying them. As you get more and more confident with them, you can make the differences smaller and smaller, if that makes sense. So what I mean with that is, if you have a hard time understanding how the muscle groups work, you can go with cylinder and boxes, right? And as soon as you want to define where the bicep is versus where the tricep is and so on, you make them very basic, it's like low polygon model, right? And the more confident you get, the more high poly you can go, the more fidelity you can add to the accuracy. If that makes sense. And you can also do like case studies, elbow to forearm, like what are those shapes and what are the major muscle groups, what are the minor muscle groups, how do I simplify them, what's the basic shape of them. And then when you understand the basic shape of them, you have to understand how they sit in perspective. And then the more basic you do that, like a block of chocolate, then you can start adding curves to it, and you can start adding, veins or whatever. But Ricky. Yeah, it's tricky to know exactly how and when, but you have to consider the function. What are they doing? If they're just standing, they don't need to flex their muscles. If they're moving, the motion will dictate why they're flexing. And it's all about contrast. If you're screaming and you have non-flexing muscles, it looks like a yawn. Oh. But if you're angry and like, every muscle is activated, that will telegraph that it's actually tension. So if you don't need to signal tension, don't have the muscle flexed. And that's like a very good idea you should have about. It's about like considering what you're painting rather than just going through the motions. Like, what's the story? Is the monster jumping, running, sitting, sleeping, screaming, lifting? Why is it? Is it angry? Is it sad? Is it sleepy? All these things will inform and should inform all aspects of the design. That's it. It was only 3 images. And in that way, with flexing, you can also signify motion and intent. Like swinging a sword, lifting a sword, holding up a thing. Is it easy or heavy? Does it like need to have tension in the hand, in the lower arm, in the shoulder? You have to consider these, and that will indicate where you need to flex and not flex. It's in the subtleties of details. So that's all for this Feedback Friday. I mean, I still have 5 minutes to draw, but just to remind everyone, if you want some feedback on your art that you've been doing over the week, just post it on the Discord and share your art. Hashtag it FF, as in Feedback Friday. I'll just do a search on that channel, and I'll see all the things that has hashtag FF, and I'll load them up before the stream next Friday. Mieses, exactly. That's very true. Because you don't have a direction, you don't have a purpose in the flex. You're just tensing all the muscles. Hey, Blind Coyote. What's up? Yuki. You're really struggling with perfectionism in my drawings. Yeah, you're not good enough to get it where you want to. That is practice, unfortunately. But you'll learn to get where you want to go if you're practicing one singular path over and over, as in like realism or perfection. I'm assuming you're going for realism. Process is key. I'm not traditionally. I haven't gone to a formal art school, so I'm self-taught, mind you. But I know that in these, what are they called? Baroque, bargue. These cast drawings, whatever they're called. They're like white cast drawings, and you draw the same drawing for a month. Like you are not allowed to proceed to the next step until step one is nailed perfectly, right? So you push and you push and you push, and your teacher goes, all right, you know, like fix this or do that, this not aligned correctly, and whatever, and then eventually he'll go like, okay, add shadows, and you start adding shadows, and you have to observe, you have to measure, you have to, and what that does is it teaches you not to rush it. It teaches you to observe. It teaches you to practice your process. Not only it's tormenting, but there's actually a method to the madness, right? It's about practicing the process of creating something if you want it perfect. Process of taking your time and learning the steps, so that you don't do shadows over here, render over here, rough sketch over here, because then you don't know the full picture and the balance that it requires and so on. That's cool, Blind Coyote. I mean, nowadays you don't need a formal training. But usually why I mention that, it's because a person from a formal art education would have different answer, and they would emphasize a different process most likely. And I just like to clarify that I don't have a formal art, being taught formal art education, so that a lot of what my theories are is based on what I've picked up over the years, what I've read myself, what I've heard from others, and there's a difference, I think. So I think it's worth mentioning. Also, oh, time is up. Also, what that does is I am giving you an out for your ego, meaning you can ignore my comments if you don't want to hear them by going, ah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Some people need that out. Mind hack. Anyways, I learned art from the streets. Yeah, from the ghetto. Yo, Yuki. Yeah, I mean, one thing is good though. What you should remember, Yuki, is I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is that if you spot mistakes in your own process, you know what to fix, and you know that your mental part of your art skills are beyond what your physical ability is. And the physical aspect of art is something that you just need to grind, repetition, drawing, right? And if you see you're making a mistake, you already know what's wrong, right? It's like, oh, why can't I nail the light correctly? You already know, oh, I can't nail the light correctly. So you have to think, what am I doing wrong? Is it in the beginning, it's in the middle, or is it in the end? Is it my understanding of light? Is it in my understanding of materials or whatever? And then you can pick that out and you can learn it, and there isn't that much mistake or mystery to it. Worse is if you're sitting there going, oh, I can't see any mistakes I'm making, right? And then everyone else be like, oh, hey, listen, ears are supposed to go on the side of the head. You know? So don't worry about it. Skill is always like perception and implementation, and they're never evenly rising. There's always perception and implementation. Perception, implementation. Let's raid Max Greg as my warm-up is over. So thanks everyone for joining in. We're going to raid Max Greg. He's a Swedish illustrator, art powerhouse, fantastic style, all around fantastic guy. So make sure you follow him and give him some love. He definitely deserves it. Have a fantastic weekend. I will most likely stream. I feel like streaming over the weekend. Do some dark fantasy stuff probably. Have a great one. Thanks everyone for coming. You guys are the best. Bye.